What up guys, welcome back to another video. I'm Rob, and in this video I want to speak all about calorie deficit. Really straightforward stuff, but definitely something that's really confusing if you have no idea what you're doing or you've never done this before. More specifically, I want to respond to one question that I got from a subscriber regarding the best way to determine a correct calorie deficit. And I want to switch that question up a little bit because the way I interpret it is, how do I best determine my correct calorie deficit for me so I can not only lose weight, but keep it off permanently? All that and more to come in this video. Let's get into it. All right, so let's start off with some really basic education on what a calorie even is. Calorie is nothing more than a term used to describe a unit of energy. And a calorie deficit is nothing more than when you consume less energy on a daily basis than you burn. And the reason this is important is because basic thermogenics states that if you're not in a calorie deficit, you're not going to lose any weight. So it's pretty important. Now, there are a bunch of different factors that can affect one's caloric needs. Things like age, height, weight, gender, and even activity level. So I want to touch on these things just so you have a basic understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So when it comes to age, that can affect your caloric intake because it can affect your metabolism. And typically, as we get older, our metabolism is slower than when we're younger. So if you're 25 years old, you're going to have some different caloric needs than someone that might be 50 plus. Your height and weight can also affect your caloric intake, as people that just happen to be much bigger, as in either very overweight or maybe very tall, or maybe a combination of both. It just requires more energy for that person to move around. So their caloric intake is going to differ than someone that might happen to be like 120 pounds and 5'5". Gender can also play a role in your caloric needs because women tend to hold much less lean muscle tissue than men. This is just on average. I'm not saying that women can't be lean. I'm saying that on average, women tend to hold less muscle tissue, and muscle tissue is much more demanding of calories than fat is. So that can definitely be a factor. And lastly, one's activity level. This can definitely determine one's needs, as depending on how active one is or is not is going to determine how many calories they burn or do not. So when you combine all these things together, you just have a better idea of how to determine one's caloric intake, and more so how you're going to get someone into a calorie deficit depending on all of the above factors. Next, I want to get into one's TDEE, which is abbreviation for one's total daily energy expenditure. And the best way that I could really go about doing this is just by jumping onto my computer, getting onto a calculator, and doing it with you. So let's get into that right now. All right, so really the very best way to do this is to just walk through it with you. It's going to be less confusing. You'll get to understand like the fundamentals of the calculator and how to be super accurate with this stuff, so when you do it yourself, you won't make any mistakes. Actually, I strongly suggest that you open up a browser and you just do this alongside with me. I left a link in the description below to the exact calculator that I use. It's totally free. Don't worry, it's not gonna cost you nothing. And we could do this together just so you know exactly how to do it. So we're gonna go to tdeecalculator.net. This is the one that I use for myself and all of my clients. You're going to start by tapping which gender you are. Then we're going to move on to your age. I'm 37 years old. Then we're going to move on to your weight. I'm 185 pounds. Then we're going to move on to your height. I'm 6 feet tall without shoes. And lastly, we're going to input your activity level. This is the only tricky part. And it's only tricky because human beings tend to make it seem like they're better than they are far too often. And here's what I mean. Don't overshoot, always undershoot. So for example, if I think I'm an all-star caliber athlete and I think I'm working out twice a day and I'm burning thousands and thousands of calories, I'm probably full of shit, I'm probably not even close. So I'm just gonna undershoot to heavy exercise. If I think I do moderate exercise and I'm kind of moving around and working out 3 to 5 days a week, I'm probably not doing as much as I think, so I'm going to undershoot and do light exercise. And the point of this is to make sure you get a number that's accurate. This is important for many reasons. If you overshoot, you're going to get a different number. Then when you're in a calorie deficit, it's not as accurate as it should have been, and you're not going to lose weight as quickly as you should have. So I think I do heavy exercise 5 to 7 days a week, and I'm probably full of shit, so I'm just going to click on moderate. And then I'm going to calculate, and I'm going to get a number. Based on the numbers that I enter, my total daily energy expenditure is 2,793, and this is going to be my maintenance calories for the day, which means as long as I eat around 2,800 calories, I'm not really going to fluctuate in weight. I'm going to stay about 185 pounds. If you wanted to gain weight, you would eat more than that, and if you wanted to lose weight, which you probably do, you would want to take away from that. Now let's talk about how you actually create your deficit, because it's important that you do this correctly, because if you over-restrict yourself, you're not going to be able to sustain it, and if you under-restrict yourself, you're not going to lose any weight. So a good number to shoot for on a daily basis is a 500 calorie deficit, a net 500 calorie deficit. The reason we want to go for this at a minimum is because if you're in a deficit, 500 calories per day on average, by the end of the week, that's going to equate to a 3,500 calorie loss, and that usually equates to 1 pound of body fat. So if you're looking to lose about 1 pound per week of body fat, you need to be in a net calorie deficit of 3,500 per week. If you wanted to lose 2 pounds per week, you need to be in a 7,000 calorie net deficit. So this gets more difficult, but we're not going to over-restrict. We're going to be patient. We're going to do this gradually because we want to do it the right way. It's really important that you don't go too low on calories, because if you do, not only is it not going to be sustainable, but you're going to risk losing muscle. You can slow down your metabolism. You could bring in nutritional deficiencies. Like, there's so many reasons to not do this as fast as you might want to. So just please take your time with it, because you're going to be more satisfied in the long run. Now let's talk about how you actually create this 500 calorie deficit, because there's many ways to do it. Some people just restrict that from food alone. I don't agree with that, because if you're eating strictly clean food, that is a lot of food volume, and you want to make sure to keep your food volume as high as possible, because the quicker you lower that, the more hungry you're going to be, the less full you're going to be, the more cranky you're going to be, and the less likely you're going to be to quit. And we don't quit here, so we want to make this sustainable. So here's my suggestion. If I were you, I would reduce calories by around 250. I would make sure that you be really intentional about getting steps in every day. Aim for 10,000 steps a day, so you can make up for whatever deficit that doesn't come from food restriction. You can make up for it with activity. And lastly, and the most important part, has to do with your gym schedule. If you can get into the gym 3 or 4 days a week and train really intensely, what I mean by that is actually try taking every set to the limit. Not only are you going to burn calories while you work out, but as you recover days and days after that workout, you're going to be burning calories recovering as well. So as long as all of this is on point, you can really create a 500 calorie deficit, and even much more, really three-dimensionally. And that's the most sustainable way to do this. All right, so now you have your TDEE, you understand total daily energy expenditure, you understand the calculator, you understand exactly how to create your calorie deficit from your TDEE. Now you're probably thinking, well, what do I eat? What's my macronutrient ratio? How do I figure that out? How many grams of protein? Relax, really not complicated. This is how we're gonna do it. The most important metric is your protein, always. The other shit really does not matter at all. So let's start with the protein. You're gonna take your body weight, and we're gonna use my stats for this example. We're gonna multiply it times 1. 185 times 1 is 185 grams of protein. So I'm looking to take in 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. We're gonna take 185 in my case, and we're gonna multiply that times 4. Why do we do that? Because there are 4 calories per every gram of protein. This is gonna give me 740 calories. I'm gonna take that 740 and I'm going to subtract it from my TDEE, which is 2,793. This leaves me with 2,053 calories. And if you remember, I suggested removing approximately 250 calories off your TDEE to create some calorie restriction. So if I did that, that means it would leave me with 1,803 calories per day. You can have more carbs than fats, you can have more fats than carbs. All that matters is that you're taking in 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight to protect yourself from losing muscle, to give yourself enough protein intake to build muscle, and the other macronutrients really don't matter at all. Just keep everything moderate, somewhere in the middle. Do something that you're gonna like, because if you like it, you're gonna sustain it. As long as you're getting your steps in and you're intentional about that, and as long as you're getting some intense workouts in, you are 100% on your way to losing weight in the most accurate and efficient way possible. Lastly, I'm gonna give you guys some tips for actually maintaining a calorie deficit, because there are people out there that do pretty much everything right, but they still don't lose weight. So why is that? It's because you're not doing everything right. It's because there are things that you're not accounting for. And there are things like liquid calories, like how many times a day do you go to Starbucks and get a Frappuccino? Or how many swigs of orange juice you're taking in, or cranberry juice, or soda, or if you go out at night for a work function and you have a cocktail or 2 or 3, you have to count these things. How often do you go out to eat and you have a healthy salad and it's drenched in some kind of dressing that's full of calories and you're not accounting for that? Or lastly, how many times do you eat out overall? Because when you go out, they usually have the calories on the menu. So if something says that it's 500 calories, you don't know how it's prepared, you don't know how they're cooking it, there might be oil, it's never accurate. And I'm not saying don't eat out, I'm just saying really limit that. When it comes to measuring progress and keeping yourself motivated, it's so important that you do this correctly. Do not obsess over the scale over and over and over again. When progress seems to be slow, it might just because you don't know what to look for. You need to make sure to pay attention to things like the way your clothes are fitting, or your pants, or how tight your shirts are, or how pronounced your jawline is getting, and all these kind of things, because it's not all about the scale. It's about physical changes to your body that you actually have to look for and know it does not make you a narcissist. All right, guys, here we are at the end of the video. I really hope you found all that helpful, and I really hope I made it as simple and as easy to understand as possible. If there are any other questions that you have regarding this topic or something that I might not have ever spoken about yet, feel free to leave it in the comments below and I'll be happy to do a video on that. Just a really quick announcement, I'm still on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and as soon as I get there, I'm going to be giving away one free 16-week transformation to one person that actually really needs it. It's just my way of giving back to you for all the support, which I really, really appreciate. Consider liking the video, subscribing, sharing it with a friend, and I will see you in the next one.